In our first video about how to adjust your holiday projections, if everything's in the center and you just need to move it over to the left or to the right in order to fit your window a little bit better, and that's great when you got that, but Peter asked about what if you have a video where the characters are spread all the way across the screen, like the singing pumpkin window projection. How do you handle that? Well, that's exactly what we're going to cover today. No more shifting around. Today we're going to split. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to open up the free version of HitFilm Express from FXHome. And once it gets going, we're going to come over to the upper left-hand corner, and there is a new button. We're going to click on that. And we're not really concerned again about what the settings are here, because we're actually going to replace these to match whatever our main video is using. So I'm just going to click OK. Now we're in HitFilm Express, so let's go ahead and import in the things that we're going to need. We're actually going to do a couple examples today, kind of getting more and more fancy and to have some different techniques to show you some ways to fix some of the different problems. So let's go ahead and get started by clicking on the Import button under the Media tab. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring in the Sleepy Hollow story from AtmosFX. Now, you could use singing ones or whatever. These are all kind of the same. We're just going to use the Sleepy Hollow one today. So go ahead and select that and click Open. And there's our Sleepy Hollow video. I notice we have a background, of course, and also too that our three main characters are very much they're in the center, but they're also like we need to see all of them. We can't just like shift them all to the left or all to the right. They're probably not going to fit. So let's see what we can do about that. So the first thing we want to do is I'm going to select our Sleepy Hollow video, and I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and I'm going to drag it to the timeline under video 1. And we're just going to let go here. And there we go. Now it's in the editor on the right hand side. And I'm just going to make sure I have this selected, and I'm going to right click and we are going to make composite shot, which is also Control M, by the way. Don't change any of these settings. These are all fine. We're just going to click OK. And now we have a composite shot of our pumpkins. Now, what we're going to do, though, is just like before, we're going to bring in an image of a window so you can see what the problems are. You don't need to bring in an image of a window. This is just so we can see what's going on here. So I'm going to click on Import. And the first window we're going to do is the same one we did last time. So I'm going to kind of select this kind of a double zone here. We've got two different big panes of glass basically, and we're going to go ahead and use that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use our window image here, and I'm going to hold down my left mouse button. I'm going to drag it on top of our pumpkin video. So now we've got the layer here with this on top. I do need to resize this really quick, so I'm going to use my scroll wheel on my mouse to scroll down to zoom out so I can see the little resize handles here. And I'm going to just hold down over my left mouse button over one of those little corners, and we are going to resize this guy here. And we'll just kind of make him just about like that. There we go. And let's just pretend that that is the way my window looks from the outside. Okay, so that's the only reason why this window image is here. So let's go over here and we're going to zoom back in using our little zoom drop down, and I'm going to select scale to fit. There we go. Now you can kind of see the problem, right? Our main center pumpkin is cut off right through the middle, and we have our two pumpkins on the other side. Now again, if we tried to shift them to the left or to the right, they probably wouldn't fit. They might, but you know, let's just assume that they won't fit, even if they might in this case. So let's go ahead and see if we can't split these guys up. All right, now since we have basically two big window panes, all we need to do is a single split. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select our pumpkin video, and I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm going to right click and go up to duplicate, which is also Control or Command if you're on a Mac, D. So duplicate. So now we have two different copies of our video. Now you might be wondering why we're doing that. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to split the video. So I'm going to end up with a left side and a right side. In fact, I'm going to select the first video here that we brought in, and I'm going to press the F2 key, and I'm going to call this left pumpkin, and hit enter. And then I'm going to select the other one, and I'm going to press the F2 key, and I'm going to type in right pumpkins and hit enter. So now we can kind of keep them apart and we know which one is which. By the way, just like before, I'm going to come up here and see that little lock icon on our window image. I'm going to click that so it cannot be moved or interacted with. That will just kind of keep it frozen in place while we make our video. So let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select our left pumpkin over here. And then I'm going to come up here, and again I'm going to use my scroll wheel to zoom out. You could also use this little drop down over here to zoom out if you'd like. And so we can see it a little bit better, because what I want to do is I want to cut out just the part that has this little leftmost pumpkin over here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and go to our rectangular mask tool right there. You could also press R, but I'm going to click on it. And what this is going to do is going to allow me to draw a rectangle and cut out parts of the video. So I'm going to do this well outside of the actual video area, and that's fine. That's why I zoomed out, because I want to make sure that I get all the edges. So I'm going to click out here, and I'm going to drag, and we're going to just drag right across here, and I just want to get as much of the empty space as I can between these two pumpkins. Alright, and then I'm going to let go. And it doesn't look like anything has happened. I'm going to go up here, and by the way, I'm going to go back to our selection tool, which is V. And however, if I come down here and I select our right pumpkins, and I go over to that little eye right here, and I click on it, makes them invisible. Now you can really see what happened. We have kind of cut out this left side over here, and now we can actually move it around wherever we might need to move it. However, before we do that, let's turn these guys back on, and I'm going to turn off the visibility on this guy, and we're going to do the exact same thing for these pumpkins over here. So I'm going to select the rectangular mask tool and make sure you have your right pumpkin selected. And then I'm going to come over here, and we are going to draw around these guys right here. Okay, and you want to try and get a little bit of that gap as much as you can. Now I might be able to get a little bit more gap. I may not have drawn that too nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here to my select tool, and you notice now that I can resize my mask. And so I can actually, need to click on that a little bit better here. I need to come back over here, and I'm going to select the mask down here because I clicked off of it by accident. And I'm going to grab this little side here, and I'm going to expand that out until I just get rid of that other pumpkin here. Again, I'm trying to get as much of that empty gap between the pumpkin as possible in each picture. Alright, so now we got our two masks done here, and so we have a mask on our right pumpkins and a mask on our left pumpkins. I'll go ahead and turn the visibility back on our left pumpkins. So make sure your right pumpkins are selected, and what we're going to do is we're going to move them, and I could just go up here and just grab them with the mouse and move them, but that's a little imprecise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the little triangle, I'm going to drop this down, I'm going to click on the triangle next to transform and drop that down, and then we're going to go over here to position, and the first, the leftmost set of numbers here, you notice when I move my mouse over, it turns like it's a little double arrows. If I hold down my left mouse button, I can move left or right, and they will precisely move left and right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them over here until that pumpkin, you can't see any of the black edge where we cut him out. I'm going to move it back over here so that little part is hidden behind the post in our windows here, the column, central column here. So we got those two guys kind of arranged there. Now, if they're not quite centered up or whatever, we can kind of move them back down a little bit there. That's actually a little centered a little bit better here for these other little sub-window frames, right? Now we kind of got them fitted in there so we can see them pretty nicely. And now I'm going to use this little triangle. I'm going to click it again. That's going to suck all that stuff back up underneath it, and then I'm going to select my left pumpkin, and just the same way I'm going to go ahead and move him over because we have a little bit of black edge right there where we cut him out. So I'm going to go to transform, and we're going to go to position. Again, I'm going to hover over the leftmost number, hold down my left mouse, and I'm going to move him right until the black gap that we cut out there is hidden behind the column also. So we're just hiding those. I'm going to move him a little bit more, try and center him up in the window a little bit more so we can see all three of them. Now, because this video has a really dark edge around the background, we can get by with this without having to hide this left edge. We have basically exposed a black gap over here, but it's very unlikely you would notice anything. If you do want to put something over there, in the last video we showed you how to do curtains, and I'm about to show you how to do a bunch more effects here when we do our three-way split, but I think it's probably passable. You probably really don't need to do anything to cover that guy up. And at this point, we are actually good to go. So if we come back over to the editor, remember that's just another tab over here. Here's our editor. Here's our composite shot. And you know, we give it a play. We can press the little play button or the space bar. And there we go. Our pumpkins are looking pretty good here. Now, once again, if you want to know what's going on behind the scenes, I'm going to come back over to the composite shot. I'm going to unlock our window image, and I'm going to hide it. And then you can see exactly what's going on. We split our two pumpkins into left and to right, and then we kind of separated them, and so but all the gap is pretty much in the middle, which is being hidden by our actual real world window. And if your windows have two big split panes, we are pretty much done. We would come back over to the editor, and we would click our export button and then go to File, and it's going to ask us where we want to save this, and I'm just going to call this two pane pumpkins, something like that. I think I misspelled pane though, the P-A-N-E. There we go. And hit enter. And it's going to export. By the way, just do double check that your default preset is the one that you want. I'm doing 1080p, which is perfect for this, and so we'll go ahead and let that continue to process here. So that is our very first pumpkin set. Now stay tuned, however, if you have a more complicated 3-pane window setup, because that's what we're going to do next. Okay, if you're ready to get into the really kind of a little slightly more advanced stuff, we're going to do a 3-pane window this time. So let's go ahead and open up HitFilm Express. And just like before, we'll come to the upper left-hand corner and click on the New button. And then we're not really going to worry about these because, again, we're going to replace all these with whatever video we're using. So I'm going to say OK. And now let's go ahead and bring in the things that we need here. So I'm going to make sure I'm under Media, and I'm going to click the Import button. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring in our Sleepy Hollow Pumpkins just like we did last time. However, I'm also going to bring in a few other items that we can use. And so I'm going to select the first item over here, and I'm going to select all the way through the stained glass window here. And we are going to click Open. So now we brought in all of these different items. Just going to think about that video here for just a second as it kind of processes everything, make sure it's all ready to go. But once it gets done here, I'm going to go ahead and select the Sleepy Hollow video, and I'm going to drag it over here to video 1 and let go. If it pops up a box saying, hey, this video is not the same format, do you want to change it? Say yes this time. But we happen to be the same format, so it didn't ask me. So now we have our Sleepy Hollow pumpkins. Okay. And so just like before, I'm going to make sure they're selected in the timeline. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to Make Composite Shot. Once again, you're not going to change anything on here. You're just going to click OK. So now we've got our Sleepy Hollow pumpkins, but this time we've got a little more complicated situation going on here. I'm going to bring in our window pane. I'm going to select it over here in the media panel. I'm going to drag it in above our pumpkins just like we did before, but you notice we have a 3-pane window here. And just like I did before, I'm going to scroll down with my left mouse wheel, and I'm going to grab a hold of these corners with my mouse button, and I'm going to drag this out so it looks like what might be a window in a house. There we go. And I'm going to use my little zoom here to scale to fit. There we go. So now this is a little more complicated because we actually need to split these pumpkins twice. We're going to have a left pumpkin and a middle pumpkin and a right pumpkin this time. And as you might suspect, what we're going to do is, last time we duplicated our video once, so we had 2 copies, a left and a right side. This time we're going to duplicate it twice, so we have a left, middle, and right. So let's go ahead and do that. Make sure your pumpkin video is selected here, and we're going to right click and we're going to go to duplicate, and then I was going to do it again, duplicate. Okay, and just like before, I'm going to rename them just so I can keep track of them. So I'm going to press the F2 button, which is rename. By the way, you could right click and select rename. And I'm going to call this guy left. And I'll select this guy here in F2, and we're going to call him middle. And then we're going to select this guy here in F2, and we're going to call this right. There we go. So now we kind of keep track of these guys. All right, kind of like before, we are going to do cutouts, and so I'm going to select my left one to start with, and once again I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and we are going to select the rectangular mask tool, and way out here on the outside, we don't have to be tidy about this. I want to make sure that I get all of the video. I'm going to select here, I'm going to drag, and just like before, I'm going to try to get as much of the kind of empty gap as we can there, but without getting into the other pumpkin if possible. Alright, so now we got our mask drawn for this guy. Once again, if you kind of made a mistake, didn't draw it right, select back on your selection tool here, the little arrow, and then you will get these little handles to change the mask. And by the way, again, if you're selected off over here and you want to edit your mask, just select the actual mask here underneath the left pane, and then when you have your selection tool going, you'll just be right back to where you can grab these little handles and move them around as necessary. Alrighty, so now we kind of got this guy done here. So I'm going to use that little arrow to kind of suck everything up underneath there, and we're going to select our middle pumpkin. And then I'm going to come over here to the rectangular mask tool, and just like before, we're going to kind of guesstimate here and get him sliced out. And I got a little bit of the other pumpkin in here. It's not a huge deal, of course. I can just do my selection tool and kind of, you know, trim this up. And then I can also move it around, by the way. Just hold down my left mouse button here, and I can drag it and move it. There we go. That's pretty good. All right, so we got that guy done. And so now I'm going to use a little triangle to suck all that stuff up underneath him, and then I'm going to go to the right, and then I'm going to select, and I'm going to cut out our third pumpkin. We got him way too big here on the cutout side, so let's kind of shrinky-dink that down, but make sure we're out here enough that we can get all of the video. Let's see, there we go. Let's make sure we cut him just right about there. I think should have all of the video, and well, maybe it's a little bit more. Maybe. There we go. Doesn't hurt to have too much. Might hurt you to have too little, so might as well just make that mask nice and big. Alright, so now we have all of our 3 masks, and just like before, I'm going to select the left one, and I'm going to click that little triangle and going to click it again under transform, and under position once again. I'm going to go to the leftmost number here, hold my mouse down over the top of it, and I'm going to slide him to the left. Of course, you can't go too far because it's going to expose that black part, so we're just going to cheat and hide it behind the post. There we go. And now I'm going to use a little triangle to suck all that stuff back up. Select the middle one, triangle again, triangle under transform, and then under position we're going to move him to the middle, and you can already see we're going to have trouble with the middle guy. He's going to be our problem child. And then I'm going to close all that back up, and then we're going to select the right one and come down to transform, and then under position I'm going to move him over here to the right, but I'm going to hide the black gap behind the column of our window. There we go. So at this point, if we kind of scrub through here by holding down our left mouse button and dragging this little bar, you can kind of see that you know, we're in good shape here on the left and right pumpkin pretty much. But we got problems on the middle one. And so there's a few different ways we could handle this. One way is we could bring in an item like a curtain or you know, a column or something like that in order to hide the gaps over here basically. So let's just go ahead and kind of play around with that for a little bit here. I'm going to select this Greek column and I'm going to drag that in, and I'm going to put it below the window but above our 3 video clips. Okay, there we go. And there's our Greek column, and I can kind of resize this guy, kind of getting more or less to fit here in our picture. And then again, I can click here in this little dot and move him around. I'm going to move him over here, and then I'm going to select my middle pumpkin, and I'm going to unfurl him here and back to position again, and I'm going to move him over where that black gap is just covered by this wooden centerpiece here. There we go. And then I can see I've still got a little bit of gap here with my column. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to my column, and I could try to move it over a little bit more. I've got a little bit of room, but I'm kind of seeing some black over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to expand my column and make it look bigger, because no one knows how big this column actually is in the world. So we'll do that, and I'm going to move the column base so it's not touching our pumpkin. Let's kind of set it down there, and there we go. We've hidden the ugly basically with a column in this case. And of course, just like I did before, I would probably come over to effects and type in hue, H-U-E, and we're looking for hue, saturation, and lightness. I would probably throw that onto the Greek column right there and unfurl that. Again, go to master. And I would probably turn the brightness way down. I would probably come up here to hue shift and kind of cast it into that like purple range we got going on here. Ooh, that's getting pretty close. Maybe adjust the you know, the amount of color with saturation. Again, I'm holding my left mouse button down over these numbers and just dragging left and right just to eyeball it basically into place. And there we go. So we've got our three pumpkins all split up, and of course they're ready to start singing or doing whatever they do. And again, just like before, we come over here to the editor, and we could go ahead and export this out. Oh, actually, it looks like my column is slightly showing some black there. So let me come back over here. Make sure I select my column here. I'm going to expand it out just a smidgen more. Make sure it covers everything. There we go. Now come back over here to the editor, see how that looks. Okay, oh, still got a tiny bit there. Well, I'm not doing a very good job today, am I? You know, we can also shift this over, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it and kind of move it just a little tiny bit. Come back over here to the editor. Oh, there we go. Okay, so now we're looking pretty good here. Looks like he's just sitting next to a column in the window for some crazy reason. And so we've got it all ready to go. And again, we would just click the export button, and we would export our video out. Let's do another one though, just real quick. So I'm going to come over here to our composite shot once again. Let's go ahead and zoom in so we can see a little bit better. That was my problem before. I couldn't see very nicely. And I'm going to turn the little eyeball off on our column so we can't see it. And I'm going to come over to the media tab, and this time I'm going to scroll down and we're going to find our curtain. We're going to drag that in. Again, it's got to be below the window pane but above your videos. Where it is in relation to the column doesn't matter. Just like before, I'm going to scroll out. I'm going to grab that guy. I'm going to kind of, you know, shape it to fit here, something that I think is going to fill that gap. I'm going to grab it by the dot here in the middle with my left mouse button. I'm going to drag it over. And just to save some time, I'm going to come down here to our Greek column, And remember we put on that hue, saturation, and lightness effect? It's under effects, so I'm going to drop that down. I'm going to select it, right click and hit copy. I'm going to come up over here to our curtain and I'm going to right click and go to paste. And it's going to paste our hue, saturation, and lightness from the column onto our curtain, getting us pretty close in the color range that we wanted here. So let's go back to scale to fit. And there we go. So now we got a creepy curtain there to kind of hide that gap that we created. Now let me show you one more technique that you can use. So I'm going to close up our column, and I'm going to go up here to our curtain. I'm going to use the eyeball and turn it off. I could also just delete them, by the way, too, the column and the curtain, because we're really not going to use them. And let's go back over to media one more time, and this time I'm going to use this stainless glass effect. And so I'm going to drag it in just like before. It's below the window, but above the videos, and I'm going to let go. Now we got a couple of problems. First of all, it's not rotated the right direction, so we need to fix that first off. So I'm going to use our little arrows and I'm going to open up the items below our stained glass window here. I'm going to open up under transform, and I want to go to rotation here, and I'm going to come over to the rightmost numbers here, and I'm going to type in 90 for 90 degrees, and that's going to rotate our window image here, our stained glass image, 90 degrees. So now it's facing the right direction. Now we can just kind of, like resize it to make sure it fits the window. It's actually, pretty close, but we're kind of just touch it a smidgen here to kind of get it, to fit. And of course, if you wanted to, you didn't want it quite so big, so you could expand it out, and so like the outer border of it is actually hidden behind your windows or something like that if you wanted to. So we could actually do that, and of course you could move it around as you see fit. Yeah, I'm gonna call that good right there. Let's pretend that that's our stained glass window effect. And let's go ahead and move our pumpkin around so we can make sure that there could be seen, though, in our stained glass windows. And so I'm going to select our middle pumpkin. Remember, that's kind of our problem child anyway. And this time I'm just going to manually mouse move him here. I'm going to come up here to this little dot, and I'm going to hold down my left mouse button. I'm just going to move him around, and I'm going to move him up so we can see his little shadow here. Alright, now you notice we got a little bit of black edge around there. It's not quite being hidden by our stained glass that we're putting in to hide all this stuff. So I'm going to come back to my stained glass, and I'm going to, let's see what we can do here. Kind of bring that in a little bit and try and hide a little bit more of him, something like that. There we go. Alright, so now we've got this guy kind of fixed up here, but we don't really have any stained glass on the other windows, and that looks kind of weird here. So let's do that trick we did again with the hue, saturation, and lightness. So I'm going to come back over to my Greek column. I'm going to open him up. I'm going to, under effects, I'm going to find hue, saturation, lightness. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come over here to our stained glass, make sure it's selected, right click, and I'm going to paste it. Oh, now there we go. So now it's a little more spooky looking. It was way too festive before. Again, you could adjust those if you wanted them to maybe be a little bit darker, or more colorful or whatever, or maybe shift it to like a different part of the color scheme or something, maybe more reds or oranges for Halloween, something like that. But once you're happy with it, what we're going to do is we are going to duplicate our stained glass just like we duplicated our videos before. So I just right click our stained glass, make sure it's selected, and go to duplicate. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing again, right click and go to duplicate. Okay, and so our first one down here, I'm going to press F2, and I'm going to call this middle stained glass, right? There we go, and then we're going to select this one, F2, we call this left stained glass, and then we're going to select our other one here in F2 again to rename, and we're going to call this right stained glass. There we go. So now let's go ahead and move them around. So I'm going to select our right stained glass, and I'm going to drop down a little arrow here, and we're going to drop down the one next to transform. I'm going to go to position, and again this left number over here, I'm going to hold down my left mouse button over it, and I'm going to drag it to the right. And once again, the reason why we're doing this is that way I know that I'm not going to move it up and down or anything. I'm just going to move it smoothly left and right. There we go. That's in good position. So that's our right one. And then let's do our left one, and we're going to do the exact same thing. Drop it down and drop down under transform. Go to position. Move your mouse over to the left number. And we're going to slide it by holding down our left mouse button and dragging over here. There we go. All right. So now we need to go ahead and kind of rearrange our other pumpkins because they kind of got cut off by our stained glass cheat here, basically, that we're using. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and go to our left pumpkin. And I'm just going to grab hold of this guy here, and we are going to move him up close to where he should be and get him centered up. All right. And then I'm going to go grab our right pumpkin by selecting him, and then I'm going to move him around where I can see him, but all his, all the sins are covered there, right? Okay, so get him about there. And of course, I want to make sure I free moved them around here with my mouse, but I want to make sure they're all on the same level. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come over here to our middle one, and we're just going to say he's the proper one. And I'm going to drop down my little arrows, and I'm going to go down to transform, and I'm going to go to position. And see this number right over here, the 170.9, and there's a bunch of little digits after that. That is the height of our middle pumpkin. Just to make that a round number, I'm just going to type in, 170. I think that's close enough right there. Okay. Now all we got to do is just make all the rest of our pumpkins, that right-hand number over here, 170. And so I'm going to close the middle one back up. We're going to open up the left one, and we're going to go down here to transform, and I'm going to use my mouse button, by the way, to scroll up and down in this list. Come down over here, and we're going to type in 170. Again, I just click in that little box and type in 170, and close him back up, and we're going to select the right one, drop him down, drop down transform if you need to, come over here and type in 170, whoops, 170, and hit enter. There we go. Now we know they're all on the exact same level. And that's it. Now we've got 3 pumpkins in our fancy stained glass windows ready to export. So, again, you can come out here to the editor, click the export button and to file, and save them out just like we did before. And that's it for the video. So we slice and dice our pumpkins three ways to Sunday today, and I certainly hope you enjoyed it, and I certainly hope this also helps you fix all of your pumpkin projecting problems. So if you did, please like and subscribe to this video. I do appreciate it. It does help the channel. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.